This is another unusual case. We have here a vintage Hoffner Western, which is likely from the 1960s. The label has disintegrated, don't have the actual model number. Because the Hoffner Western guitar, it existed in a number of different iterations under different model numbers, from 1953 all the way up into the mid-90s. Different shapes, different names in different markets too. It's essentially the J45 of the Hoffner line, sort of a workhorse guitar that's pretty no-nonsense. But to be clear, I mean, it's not a J45. Most of these are made of laminated material throughout. You know, one small string in production had solid spruce tops on them, but the vast majority are fully laminated. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. Many plywood guitars have a pleasing sound. They're quite robust and they travel well, and many are actually easier to amplify. This thing has obviously experienced and seen things you people wouldn't believe. Perhaps some attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. This bridge is not the way it was. I'm not even sure it's the original. Here's the thing. The owner uses this to play in an alternate tuning, specifically Robert Fripp's new standard tuning, which goes both lower and higher than standard. This is a hybrid tuning of fifths, like violin family instruments, for the lower strings, then with a minor third interval on top. And that's only because making that top into another fifth is practically impossible without breaking strings. You just can't get there on a normal guitar, because that would be B on the 7th fret in regular tuning, you know, too high even with the skinniest strings. And that poses some issues with intonation on a standard sort of guitar. And in this case, I don't think that saddle is where it should be, even for regular guitar tuning, because the octaves are pretty sour. So as you can imagine, we're going to plug and reroute the saddle slot. Looking at this, there's a great big patch in the top. I'm not sure that corresponds with the original outline of the bridge. Now, some of these Epiphones had rather large, ornate kind of bridges on them. I think this is so far off center that that's probably not the case. The original one probably came pulling up at some point, which would have removed quite a lot of material, the top layer of veneer, from the soundboard. So it's currently doing pretty well for itself. It's not in danger of coming up again. No trace of the original logo, so I don't have to mess around with calling it Hoffner. And also missing a chunk of inlay there. Robert Fripp, who came up with this tuning we're dealing with, is probably best known for his work with King Crimson, of course. But he played on all kinds of different sessions, did touring work and other projects with a whole lot of different artists. Brian Eno, David Bowie, Peter Gabriel. He was also involved in teaching, and he had a seminar called Guitar Craft, which was really instrumental in, I'm not going to say popularizing new standard tuning, because it is not popular, but it did introduce it to several thousand players and got people working with it. Fripp came up with the tuning in 1983, and it addresses certain chordal and harmonic elements that he finds important in his compositions. It does make certain things easier, like with a one-finger bar over any two strings, you've got that fifth. So you're basically playing power chords all over. And, you know, the bottom 5 strings open give you the notes of the C major pentatonic scale. So you can move that around, which is fun too. The thing is, none of your previous guitar fretboard knowledge and experience transfers over. So it is quite different playing this thing. It will shock your brain if you try. You're going to be setting up new neural pathways. It reminds me of any time I'm doing one of those left-handed conversions and I test it out upside down for a few minutes. I notice that after I'm done playing, there's this strange physical sensation. It's kind of giddy and anxious, and your brain says, you know, why are you putting us through this? So it's probably healthy. Now, I thought I saw evidence before that this thing had previously been plugged. It might have been. Yeah, it looks like it. So what I'm thinking of doing is, there's a certain contingent that hates when I do this, But no, I'm going to make this into an 1/8" saddle so that I can take this G string farther back and the C. And this is one of those kind of in-between scales. Interesting. It's 640 millimeters, which is around 25 and 3/16-ish. So between a Martin and a Gibson. Action's pretty good. It's 6/64 on the bass side and about just under 5 on the treble, which is what you'd want on a guitar of this nature. And relief is around 10 thousandths, which is pretty good. On a guitar like this, that low C is going to have a bit more excursion. This is a vintage de-armand pickup. Unfortunately, it's lost the wheel to adjust the volume, but I'm quite fond of these. One of my favorite amplified acoustic tones was Lightning Hopkins, who played a number of different guitars, but definitely used one of these things, and something like either a B25 or an LG model. If you want to hear a sample, look up Black Cat Bone. It's a wonderful, gritty sound. These things are not particularly friendly to the inside of the guitar, but there we go, one de-armand. There's an errant strand of cat hair. I'll just wrap that up a bit and put it to bed. This bridge is lightly striped ebony, or striped. This is something I've noticed. Certain pockets of America, they go back and do a kind of Shakespearean thing with words like striped rather than striped. And we've got a 3/32 saddle width. It seems to be around 94 thousandths. Previous me was nice and thicknessed some stuff for this purpose exactly. So just cut myself off a little slice. And the plug should be good, but not super tight because I have to leave some room for the expansion of the glue. I'll peel off the excess. The trick is to wet sand with some thin super glue in the area of the patch, and that will eventually disappear completely. I'll mark out the line of the saddle. This is derived from the standard, but I'll add a little bit extra compensation due to the lowered tuning. I'll route the slot. I'll prepare a saddle blank. It's a fairly sculptural saddle when I'm done. I later learned that this isn't quite enough compensation either. I really hate that this has no volume control and the little knob was removed. This pot is irregular, it's small, and it's one of those crazy ones where the tiny shaft, half of it is gone, and what's left is split. It's at this point I decided I should try. I can make something. I've got an offcut of tortoise pickguard material. It's about 2 millimeters thick. I devised this quick, purpose-built compass cutter for my Dremel tool using a 16th inch drill bit as the pivot point. I'll cut through half the plastic in a pass and flip it over and do the other side as well. I'll buff up the cut edges and smooth them a bit. Then I realized it was going to be too smooth to actuate with your thumb. I needed some extra length and extra heft to house the shaft. Then I had to try and mark out the position for that shaft, which is of course not circular, and it has to be slightly offset from the center point because of that. It turned out to be about 110 thousandths wide by about 80 thousandths across, so I used a Dremel tool to cut it out. The wheel really was too smooth, so I ended up filing serrations on the edge. Single coil. Okay, for the purposes of this video, it's all set up and ready to go. Happy with the action and everything. In reality though, I missed the mark. Not quite there. We started off with the bass notes being about 20 cents sharp. Now they're about 10, which might be okay in some instances. It's like half as bad as it was, but it's not good enough for me. So late tonight, after you guys have all gone to bed, I'll be here replugging and re-slotting and moving that around just a little bit more to see if we can get it just a bit better than it is. So I'll plug in the D-Armand and noodle. Again, I have no clue where this tuning is concerned. Chording is a bit of a challenge. It's not intuitive for me, especially when I reach for high extensions. Like, the notes don't seem to be anywhere my little finger can reach. So my initial impression is it's reasonable for single note lines and 2-3 tone chords like triads and stuff, but man, is it ever different. Here is a different guitar. This is a John Lennon model, Epiphone EJ160E, which is of course a copy of a Gibson J160E. And now John Lennon played an Epiphone product, but it was not a flat top acoustic. Anyway, you can see that this has had a pretty serious soundboard crack, which has been glued up. And fear not, this is not an expensive model. It has been designated a beater by the owner, but the main thing is he does not enjoy the pickup in here. Now this gives something of the appearance of a P90, which is what the Gibsons were outfitted with, but it's not. The owner says there's no way a standard P90 could go in there because the transverse bar is too close to the sound hole. Why? Why? I'll do a sound test so that we can hear the pickups back to back when we're done swapping them, because that's what we're going to do, put a different pickup in. And here is the replacement, which is a 3-wire Fralin pickup. Ostensibly a bridge pickup, but I don't think that matters. There's likely to be maybe some difference in terms of string spacing. This is likely 49 millimeters versus 52. That'd be okay. Question is, will those pull pieces go through the holes? I want to believe they can. I did have to lower them all to the level of the plastic. I see pots from 2 different manufacturers. The gold colored one I imagine is CTS, and this gray one, which is a mini pot, which was not connected, the tone, would be the original Epiphone. And this one is very difficult to pull out of the body. This is a solid top guitar. We have to be careful. If a pot is too tight in the hole and it shrinks during the winter months, this can sometimes cause cracking. So I'm going to enlarge the hole before I reinstall it. Yeah, the original pickup is a weird little mini bucker, and it is just slightly smaller than a P90 in its width. Yeah, the brace runs right along where the end of the fretboard is, so there's just not enough room. Yeah, I'm going to have to route a larger cavity, I think. Well, we'll see. Maybe the pull pieces can be raised enough so that they'll come through there, but I don't think that's good enough for the action. So yeah, it's going to have to come through. And then we'll make a similarly shaped piece of pickguard material to cover that up. I'll wrestle with the wiring for a little bit, trying to get it off the back of the pot. Try and get things centered on the fretboard. Quick little routing jig. This has to be tall enough to clear the height of the fretboard. You can't rest the router on it because it's curved. Remember, it's got a radius. I have a thin piece of black peel and stick pickguard material through which I cut the channel for the pickup cover, and here I'm marking the holes for the adjustment screws. The center line of the rosette is a bit of a mess, so I'll extend this cover to a point, kind of like the originals. I don't want the corners to be sharp, so I'll put a little radius on those with a sanding block. I'll solder up the wires. I figure you might want a tone circuit, so I decided to wire it in. I ended up changing this pot over to a CTS because it was there was a weird sound. It was buzzy and not great, so I changed it. The Asian control knobs have smaller diameter shafts and coarser knurling patterns than their American branded counterparts, so I use a junk pot. I'll heat up the shaft and expand the knobs to fit. The polishing party don't stop. And that is that. You know, I strummed a few, and I gotta say, this is a sonic transformation this time. It's way, way better. And you know, I don't usually say things like that because it's all very subjective, right? But no, in this case, it's way, way better. Very much impressed. I know some people will quibble about the color. Yes, the cover could be swapped out for a black one. That's not arduous. I actually don't mind the white because it mirrors the color of the nut, the saddle, and the pins, and it's reasonably harmonious. I don't mind it at all. Okay, I will play and you will hear.